Benchwarmers Podcast. I am Casey Coggins here with Alvin Hebert.
Good to be back.
And Andrew Lira.
Aye.
We have wild card games starting right now. John Lester just walked Charlie Blackmon to get the wild card game started. It's going to be probably an interesting game for the Cubs. They've just been playing so much baseball recently that it just seems like they're low on energy. So we'll see how this goes. We'll discuss the wild card games, the Athletics and Yankees tomorrow, and then we'll go over round one of the Major League Baseball playoffs, the most exciting part of the year for baseball. And we'll start off talking NFL. Week 4 just finished up last night with a very, very good game out of Kansas City and Denver.
That's what you expect out of Monday Night Football.
I think,
ESPN scored out big with those Monday Night Football games.
Well, and Thursday night they did a good job, and it's crazy to think that you look down, you look at the Monday Night Football schedule and the Thursday night football schedule, and there's only a couple dud games in there, the first game.
This Thursday night football game's kind of
which
Colts and Pats.
I do think that game could be a lot more interesting than people think, because the Colts have been competitive in every game they've played. They haven't been blown out. Andrew Luck has played very well, other than he's not throwing the ball downfield. But that's kind of the game that you have to play against the Patriots, is a control the clock, control the ball game, and that's kind of the style that the Colts are trying to play right now. With Andrew Luck. So I think it'll be an interesting game. And then the next Monday night is Washington and New Orleans, where Drew Brees is going to break another record. He will pass Peyton Manning.
You gonna be sad?
No. It's what happens when a guy throws for 5,000 yards in 4 straight seasons. That's just Drew Brees.
Is Drew Brees better than Peyton Manning?
Yes. He's going to be higher on the list.
He said no.
He's going to be higher on the list.
Moving up in notches.
I mean, so if we're going based off of that, then Tom Brady, where is he at? Because he's behind Brett Favre on all the stats.
Yeah, no. I don't think Tom Brady's my go-to guy. It's just fun to poke at you because you take it personally.
It's not that I take it personally, because I'm not Peyton. I'm not like Matt Stafford and the guys that I try to defend. It's like I've watching a lot of football and trying to understand what makes these games great. You can't base certain things on certain guys. So Stu Gatz earlier today on the Dan Le Batard show was talking about Kershaw not being the greatest pitcher of this generation because he doesn't have a World Series ring, and so he and I know this is the character of him. I don't know if this is actually something he believes or if it's just he's playing up the radio character.
You don't know if this is Stu Gatz or John Wiener.
Yeah, exactly. So he everything is based off of rings. Who has more rings? Who has more Super Bowls or World Series or NBA championships? Who has the rings? It qualifies you as a great player. But then you get into okay, well, Robert Horry has 7 rings. Is he a better player than Jordan? You can't go into a ring argument because of reasons like that. But Monday night, Drew Brees he only needs the 201 yards, which he should be able to get in his sleep. And as we're discussing everything right now, John Lester has given up the first run of the game on a sac fly to Nolan Arenado. So the season of the NFL so far has been pretty competitive, other than some dud games. One of those dud games this past week was Mitchell Trubisky and the Bears, this game Mitchell Trubisky and Khalil Mack. running ram shot over
The Bucks.
And calls, like, they pretty much said, all right, yeah, Jameis is going to be your starter going forward because this guy isn't going to work out for you against good defenses. So the Bucks announced that Jameis is going to be the starter after the bye week this week going forward. Trubisky, 5 touchdown passes in the first half, 6 overall. Khalil Mack, another sack, another forced fumble. He hit Jameis when Jameis came into the game, which caused a floating pass. They got intercepted by Danny Trevathan.
That was the first throw that he for him in the game too.
Yep.
So it's like now. Right now, you kind of have this, at this moment in the season, you have a 3-way, like, race to the NFL MVP, I think. And you could probably say 4, and it's Pat Mahomes, Khalil Mack, and then Goff and Gurley from the Rams. Like, those are the guys, and that's why some people were saying really it's between Khalil Mack and Patrick Mahomes because Goff and Gurley are going to kind of split things.
Yeah.
Because it's like Goff McVay setting up that offense the way he has and Goff executing it the way he has allows Gurley to be as dynamic as he is. But Gurley being as dynamic as he is allows Goff to do what Sean McVay diagrams. So it's like they have the Saints and Kansas City have the perfect offense right now. They don't have any flaws on offense. They don't, like Atlanta. They don't have any weaknesses, but their flaw is that they can't score in the red zone efficiently.
It's in their head.
Pittsburgh,
or it's Matt Ryan.
Pittsburgh has the same thing, but you never know when Roethlisberger is going to throw 3 interceptions in a game. So, like, with these 3 guys, Goff, I think, has 1 interception on the season. Patrick Mahomes doesn't have 1. And Drew Brees, I think, might have 1. These guys don't turn the ball over. They play smart. They're getting it to their weapons. They play for tremendous offensive genius coaches. And then Khalil Mack is just a one-man wrecking crew this year.
Making that Bears defense elite, man.
So, to touch on other games, we can start with Thursday night's game, which goes to the Goff and Gurley thing, where they held Minnesota down for as long as possible and pulled out a win there. I thought this was a game that Minnesota could possibly sneak away with because Marcus Peters and Aqib Talib were banged up. Peters, I believe, played. Talib was out. And so Minnesota looked really good. They were scoring with the Rams, but the problem was
They forgot about Cooper Kupp.
Every time they scored. Well, and so there was the one long pass play to Cooper Kupp at the end of this first half, and one of the NFL, like an NFL analyst from wherever, actually showed that play being ran by who was it? Like Kyle Shanahan, I think. Mm-hmm. And a different offense where they put a wide receiver. Well, on the previous team, it was a tight end on one side of the line, and they do the run action. So it looks like he's going to run, and so the receiver crosses the entire formation in front of everybody, like running a route, and then runs this elongated wheel route, and people just don't follow him because they're following the zone blocking scheme, the play action, the other guys, and they use this bunched formation to allow the wide open pass, which is, again, Sean McVay is just drawing these plays up and taking from other teams, and with the weapons he has, it's just like, who's going to stop this offense? And it was my foolish self that was like, well, the Vikings had a good defense last year, not thinking about how bad their defense has been this year so far, and they didn't have Everson Griffin. And I had Jared Goff on my bench.
Fantasy update.
So that was a stupid decision. And Cooper Kupp, like 7 receptions for 116 yards and a touchdown.
Well, Brandon Cooks also, Xavier Rhodes could not lock down Brandon Cooks at all. Well,
and that's another analyst that I follow was talking about how Xavier Rhodes isn't. He's kind of a big cornerback who wants to play like physical man to man. Like he's a guy who you want to guard Julio Jones with. He's not the guy who you want to guard like a
shifty.
Yeah, small, the Cooks or the Wes Welkers of the world, the Danny Amendolas of the world. Like you don't want to guard those guys with him. And so it was just Mike Zimmer, I think, got severely outcoached, and really I think it was also that it was just out talented. Like the Rams were just better. That the Vikings were pretty much helpless. And then when it came down to it, when the Vikings needed to go down and score a touchdown, now you get to unleash the defensive line that you have of Aaron Donald and Ndamukong Suh and Brockers and those guys, and Donald just blew apart that offensive line.
That's why you paid him the big bucks.
So that was the Thursday night game, and so far the Thursday night games have been really good. We've touched on this week's might be kind of a dud, but we'll see. I think that it'll be better than most people are expecting it to be. The Vegas line is right around like 10 points in favor of New England winning. So let's touch on some of the other games from the weekend, because we did have a couple overtime games. Let's see, we had 3 overtime games. We had 2 that didn't go into overtime that were decided by last second plays.
Which one?
We'll get to the Detroit game. All right, we'll get to Detroit and Dallas. Before that game started, I was in the kitchen and I turned to April and I go, really the only reason why I want Detroit to win this game is so I can start off the podcast Tuesday just laughing hysterically. But that didn't happen. But let's start with a game that didn't go into overtime and a game that wasn't really close, and we'll start kind of trek our way backwards from Sunday night. The Ravens just outclassed the Steelers, other than like an 8-minute point of. My phone started playing the baseball game. They know that I need to be paying attention to this. But the Ravens, other than like 8 minutes in the second quarter, just outclassed the Steelers the whole night. The Steelers couldn't get any pressure on Joe Flacco. Ben Roethlisberger really couldn't get into any kind of rhythm. It was one of those games where you finish watching it and you think about it and you're like, Pittsburgh really isn't that good.
Nope.
Like, and people were like, "Oh yeah, they'll be Super Bowl contenders."
Nope.
Because you look at the offense.
2 years ago.
And I mean this before. Well, once Ryan Shazier got hurt, that's really the tipping point there, because they were on the up and up, and they have this guy who's their defensive captain. Mm-hmm. It's like, look at Kansas City without Eric Berry. Like he goes out, he gets hurt, and that the entire defense just falls apart. That's how it was with Seattle when Earl Thomas got hurt last year. He's the anchor, and that's how Ryan Shazier was. Is like they built around him in the middle because of how athletic he was and all the types of things that he could do. Another example is look at Atlanta with Deion Jones. Like, you have these guys who these defenses are like, this is the guy who's going to be doing this exact thing for us.
Luke Kuechly.
And then you can branch out from there and say, all right, well, we know Luke Kuechly is going to be able to call the plays, make the right adjustments, make the right audibles, get guys in the right spot, and then he'll also be able to go side sideline to sideline and make a tackle.
Sean Lee.
But we don't want Luke Kuechly in coverage. So if Luke Kuechly has to get in coverage and cover a running back, you're going to get burned. So that's kind of how Pittsburgh's defense is without Ryan Shazier. Now they're having to have guys that they drafted to be like a supporting cast, be the main star of the defense, and they're just not there yet. And the improvements that their cornerbacks showed last year in man coverage just isn't working this year.
They got nobody on that defense.
Yeah.
Nobody.
They have Joe Hayden, or the shell of Joe Hayden.
Yep, he hasn't been what he was in Cleveland.
And they have decent pieces here and there across that defense. But they don't have what they need. Like that, Tim Williams, I think right now is their main defensive player out of Alabama, who's in the second year, but he was drafted to pair with Ryan Shazier.
Don't they have Watt's brother also?
T.J. Watt, yeah, and
I think he's their best defender.
Yeah,
right
like
now.
he's the other guy. So
somebody has to be.
So the Ravens have, I think, before this season, most people thought that the Pittsburgh Steelers were going to win this division by like 2 or 3 games.
I think we thought that too when we made our picks.
Yeah. And then, like, I thought Cincinnati was going to slump. I thought they were going to take a dive because they didn't change anything from like the last 4 years. But they came out rejuvenated. Tyler Boyd is a weapon. Unfortunately, they had another injury to Tyler Eifert. And so I thought they were going to be bad. I thought Cleveland was going to be a little better, but not there yet. And then Baltimore was really the wild card to me because I wasn't sure how that team was going to mesh because they had a great defense last year. Their defense is great again this year.
Well, I thought that defense would have took a step back because it's the same personnel, just older. Like, you still got Suggs, but Suggs still doing his thing.
Yeah, I mean, and Jimmy Smith didn't even play last night.
Yeah.
Or Sunday night. And so they have... they're a team that just kind of snuck. I think they're a lot better, and the big question mark going into the season was that offense, because you got just completely new offensive weapons as a receiving core, and so far Crabtree's been playing well. John Brown is balling out of his mind right now, and Alex Collins and Buck Allen have been running really well, especially in the red zone. They've been capitalizing, and then they have the best kicker in football. So they're doing things that I wasn't really expecting out of them. But I knew that it wasn't out of the realm of possibility for them. The Saints, they literally ran away from the Giants.
The Giants couldn't catch them, man.
And it's that game was the main reason why I picked them to win the Super Bowl before the year, because they don't have to rely on Drew Brees to win games. Now, he's not going to lose you games, but it's not one of those things where it's like Blake Bortles, where it's like you have to win in spite of him, and then if he's great one game, it's like a added bonus, where like Drew Brees is always going to be great, but if they're making it a point to cover the guys and making sure that Drew Brees doesn't throw for 300 yards and 3 touchdowns. They have number 41, the octopus in the backfield, Alvin Kamara. You say Kamara, I say Kamara. That's just unbelievably good.
those dual threat running backs.
Yeah,
Catch the ball out the backfield and then can run over people too. Like
yeah, it's
for how small he is.
it's kind of nice, like seeing how football has gone, because like 8 years ago is when I was kind of hyping up, like, you still need a defense and you still need running backs. Like, everybody was like, running backs are like disposable. Everything's centered around the quarterbacks and the passing game, and I was like, it doesn't matter who's your quarterback if you can do things to help the quarterback. So it's like, Jacksonville's one of the favorites to make it to the Super Bowl, and they might have the 28th worst starting quarterback in the league. He's actually worse than some teams' backup quarterbacks. Like, I would take Lamar Jackson over Blake Bortles right now.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
So it's
no question.
like, I would rather see them have Josh McCown from the Jets than Blake Bortles.
I'll still have Fitzpatrick over Blake Bortles. And I know
at least for a couple weeks.
Yeah.
So it's, you get a defense and you get a run game and you get a quarterback, like in that right now, it's, you get a good young quarterback on a rookie scale, like, you're going to contend. And everybody's like looking at the game last night with Patrick Mahomes going on the road in Denver, playing a good pass rush, a good defense, a good like fan base that makes opposing teams, when they go into Mile High, they make calls false starts and make things hard for the visiting team.
Man, the camera was shaking last night.
Yeah, it was.
And he pulls out a win, and so you have today people like looking at Denver's roster. It's like, you don't have a long-term solution at quarterback, and you're going to have to face this team when they have Patrick Mahomes on his rookie deal. They have Kareem Hunt on his rookie deal. They're going to be able to afford to pay Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce and Eric Berry and any other, like, and they're going to be able to pay guys on their defense more money than they normally would when they have to pay Mahomes and Hunt their money. Like, look at all the money the Rams spent, and it's because Gurley hasn't had his extension yet. Goff hasn't had his extension yet. They're not paying the big money to the big money positions on offense so that they could load up the defense. And that's how Seattle got really good. And a lot of the teams that have been really good lately have been because they found the quarterback they wanted, and it allowed them to spend money in other positions. It's why the Cowboys went 13-3 in Dak and Zeke's rookie season, and they probably would have gone 11-5 last year. And this year has been kind of touch and go, but I think they've made a turn for the better. So I could see them pulling out a 10-6 season this year, because they have those guys on such a small deal that they have paid their offensive line. They have paid some of the defenders they have. So that's the way you build in the league and win going forward. And a team that we might see that ends up like this in a couple years is one of the games that went into overtime in Cleveland. Cleveland has Baker, who looks better than a lot of people expected. I wasn't really sure what to expect out of him when the draft was, and like, I wouldn't have taken him number 1 overall. I would have taken Sam Darnold over him. I probably even would have taken Josh Rosen over him.
I was saying
I thought he was
over him.
I was definitely in the pick Barkley over him. And they picked Baker, and then I watched him in the preseason a little bit, and I was hearing the things coming out of the Cleveland camp, and I started like before even seeing him in the regular season, I started moving the needle to the other side and being like, Baker's actually going to be a quality quarterback. And then he comes in the first game and he's just accurate. He's able to make plays on his feet. He might not be the quickest guy, but he can throw on the move. And they're going to have him to allow him to grow these next 3-4 years. It'll allow them to pay the Myles Garretts and the Jarvis Landrys and the other guys on their team so that they can utilize him on the pay scale that he's on to make their team better. And 3 years from now, you might be looking at a team that's going to an AFC championship. Probably not, because it's Cleveland.
I was just like, man.
But they know where they're building, and they're building the way that the smart GMs are building. They're building John Dorsey's way, which is what he was doing in Kansas City, who I already touched on with Mahomes and Hunt. On the other side of that team that beat Cleveland this week was Oakland. Yep. John Gruden got his first win in 10 years. And
his first season back.
Cleveland is 1-2-1 right now, and they should be 4-0.
Yeah.
It's not they could be 4-0. They should be 4-0. They should have beat the Saints. They were up 12-3 going into the fourth quarter. Had it not been for a kicker, they win that game. Had it not been for a kicker, they beat Pittsburgh.
That's why the kicker's not around.
Where he at, though?
And then this last game, they were up 14 points going into the fourth quarter. And then they were up 8 with a minute left. And they shouldn't have lost that game. But they did.
They keep their foot on the pedals.
The Raiders scored a 2-point conversion to tie the game by running the worst, statistically the worst play to run on the goal line. And they don't have Julio Jones or AJ Green or one of these super athletic, the Jimmy Grahams or Gronkowski type guys. They threw a fucking goal line fade to Jordy Nelson.
Jordy fucking Nelson.
Woo.
Good catch.
John Lester almost gave up a home run to, I think, is that Dahl or Story?
Had your heart pounding there?
Yeah. Yeah, it's Dahl. This dude came on just in a flurry. David Dahl for the Rockies had a home run in 7 straight games.
Shit.
Coming down the stretch. But that guy's a future Gold Glove center fielder right there, Albert Almora Jr. Now, wheeling back into week 4, let's go ahead and talk about mine and Andrew's teams. And I guess Alvin's too. I never remember what NFL team. I don't really.
He goes for 90s winners.
Yeah, that's true. I need to remember that.
90s winners.
Duke basketball.
No,
Miami football.
Miami football.
Atlanta Braves.
North Carolina basketball.
The Bulls.
Griffey.
The Mariners, yes.
So where was that defense at in Detroit?
They can't stop the run.
Clearly.
The 3 games that they've lost, they've given up an average of 160 yards on the ground.
They gave up 150.
And the Patriots the Patriots just gave up on running the ball. They just that was baffling. I'm a Lions fan and I'm watching this game and I'm like, how are you not running the fucking ball? If you watch the Lions defense, gap assignments are just terrible. You can just run stretch zone run plays and just run all over them. Matt Breida did it for San Francisco. Isaiah Crowell and Bilal Powell did it for the Jets. Zeke just gobbled up all the food. And then when it came down to it, he makes an over-the-shoulder catch on a dime by Zeke to seal the game. Because
right in the basket, man.
The Cowboys scored to go, or they kicked that field goal to go up 6 with like a minute 18 left, or however much time. And I was like, well, the Lions are going to score a touchdown here. But then the Lions scored, and I was like, well, fuck, the Cowboys are going to score a field goal. Like Golden Tate scored on that the deep ball from Stafford, and I'm like, just go out of bounds. Like you need to kill time, because you're not going to go up by more than a field goal. So all they're going to need to do is get a field goal to win the game. And have you been able to stop Ezekiel Elliott? Because I haven't seen it.
240 all-purpose yards that game.
Yeah, he which was his career high. And it probably should have been more. They only ran the ball 25 times with him. He only ran the ball 25 times. Dak Prescott threw it 27. And it's the typical, as a Lions fan, typical Detroit Lions game. And it's the reason why I think people think that Matt Stafford isn't as good as he is, because they look at his win-loss record and they're like, the Lions are 6-10. But it's that Drew Brees curse, where it's like his stat line was 24 of 30, 307, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. And he gets lost because their defense can't hold anybody in.
Just needed one more touchdown.
They didn't run the ball as much as they should have.
I mean, just needed the defense to stop.
They ran the ball.
That's all you needed.
Kerryon Johnson got 9 carries for 55 yards. And I'm going to air out more frustrations about the Lions. LeGarrette Blount is done. He's done. He had a decent game against New England where he ran the ball 7 times for 50 yards. But he's done. Get him out. You have a star running back now. You have a guy that you can use like Kareem Hunt. You have a guy that you can use like a Zeke Elliott. He might not be as talented as Zeke is, but you have a guy who you can give him the ball 20 times a game. You gave him 9 carries for 55 yards. That's an average of 6.1 yards a carry. Just run the ball. Use him. They gave LeGarrette Blount 7 carries, so 2 less carries. He had a total of 12 yards for a whopping 1.7 yards per carry. And when the Lions
that needs some work.
Well, and when the Lions have LeGarrette Blount in, it's okay, they're gonna fucking run the ball. He's not gonna do anything else.
You're definitely not going to pass the ball.
he's either a pass blocker or he's a runner. You're not passing the ball to him. So if Matt Stafford drops back to pass, whoever would be covering LeGarrette Blount can just rush the passer. And if they hand the ball off, when they show run, you can they can maybe do play action off of it and try to do that. But why not just put Kerryon Johnson in the game and run the fucking play action with him? Because then he can go out and actually catch a pass and make a play happen. You don't see. Well, you kind of see it happen with Zeke, but with Todd Gurley or Devontae Freeman or Le'Veon Bell, they don't throw in a special running back to be able to run certain plays. They just run the plays with these guys because they're great. And I'm not saying Kerryon Johnson's great, but he's the best running back that the Lions have had.
Say it's Reggie Bush.
They got probably actually since Barry Sanders, because they got Reggie Bush later in his career. He kind of figured out how to do things, But right now, like going forward, Kerryon Johnson's future is a lot brighter than Reggie Bush's was when they got him. Because they got him after his like Miami days and after his New Orleans days, and
they got him at the end of his career.
Yeah. Where he understood how to run the ball, and I think he ended up running for like over 1,000 yards in one season. But he wasn't the same dynamic player that he was. Yeah. So, looking at the team stats of that game, Detroit ran 53 plays to Dallas's 65, and Dallas had the ball 10 seconds longer. 53 plays for 10 seconds less.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a big disparity there.
So they were able to at least, like, they almost had the same amount of possession, but they had so many less plays, and their yards per play were better. It was just Zeke and Dak made plays when they needed to. And the Lions just mismanaged the game. The other game that I wanted to touch on that went kind of last second was the Bengals and the Falcons, because the Falcons, outside of their first game where they scored 12, I think it was, against Philly and lost, they put up like over 40 on New Orleans. They put up 36 on Cincinnati. And then last week week two, they put up 31 on the Panthers. And then it was 36 that they scored. 37. So they're averaging like 35 a game their last 3 games, and they have 1 win to show for it.
It's all about stops, man.
And
it's all about making the stops.
Their defense is ravaged by injuries.
Yep.
They have a pass rush, somewhat of a pass rush. Vic Beasley's the main guy. But they were playing this zone defense on the play that ended the game, knowing that Cincinnati needed to score a touchdown, and AJ Green found a soft spot in the zone, and Dalton made the throw and made the play. And like Cincinnati's offense has just been lights out so far this year. Their defense had a rough game, but the Falcons should be doing this to every team pretty much with the talent that they have.
And the emergence of Calvin Ridley.
They figured out how to. Hey, Julio Jones is double teamed. This guy's really good. Let's give him the ball.
Let's try this out.
And so he's been a star the last couple of weeks. And I just feel bad for Tyler Eifert, because like every year he's just
riddled with injuries.
Something happens. Like this might be one of those where he just says, I'm done.
Yeah.
I like, it's just not going to happen.
When he's healthy, he's a Pro Bowl talent. But how often is that?
His rookie year. Are there any other things that y'all want to touch on from this past week? Before we move on, there is that one last one that I brought up earlier. The bird flipper. Earl Thomas. He did what like everybody wants the players to do. Like, they'll give you a contract. Just go and play for them. Go and report to the team. Be a team player. You'll get the contract you want. And so he goes back, reports, gets back into like game shape, and then just a fluke of an injury. Like watching the play, he's running in the like back of the end zone, kind of dives to make a stop. His leg hits the guy, and you can just see it like go. And he fractured his leg, and he's out for the rest of the season.
But this is why the people that say like that, well, you get paid enough already, just like why you holding out type of deal. Like this is why they hold out. Because if you're on a franchise tag and you get hurt, that's
you got
it.
no long-term protection.
Yeah. You lost that. You lost the rest of that money right there.
Yeah, that's the reason why they turn NFL into not for long.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's what it is. It's the no fun league, and it's not for long. And it's like, and it's funny because it kind of builds in this excuse for Le'Veon Bell, because Le'Veon Bell, is doing the same thing that Earl Thomas wanted to do, and he's held out, and he hasn't reported to the Steelers, and like it allows him to say, yeah, I'm not reporting because y'all are going to use me this much, and then I'm going to get hurt, and then you're not going to pay me the contract that I want. And so he gets to, like, literally point at somebody who just went through the same thing and got hurt.
Lost millions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not. I'm pretty sure.
No, he's going to get paid.
But that's it. He's not going to get that long-term contract.
Yeah, but I mean, he's 31 years old now. He plays on the Colt McCoy Texas team. Like he's not.
But at the same time,
he's not Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell's 25 years old.
But still, he's the best free safety in the game.
I had Madden. I was playing Madden a couple years ago, and I do the franchise mode, and I put him on my team, and I'm like, Le'Veon Bell's only fucking 23 years old, and he was already like the best back in the league, because after like his first 2 years of just shattering like all-purpose yard records.
Well, it's the same thing that they say about Josh Gordon when he was on his tear, and like even now, that's just why people still give him a chance, because he's only like 25 or 27.
He's 28, because he's a year older than us, because he was at Baylor with RG3.
Yeah, he's still a young guy.
And I was a freshman with RG3 at Baylor.
He's still a young guy.
Thanks.
Too bad we can't say the same thing about you, Alvin. Your old ass.
This beer really tastes good.
I like beer. Still like beer.
Great. So, yeah, it was a really, really competitive week of football, other than the Bears game, the Patriots game, the Jags game. Oh, and the Packers and the Bills. So, four out of 15 games not being competitive.
It was a good week.
Yeah,
it was a good week.
So week 5 hopefully gives us another feast of good football. There is going to be a couple games that, as the Bill Simmons podcast likes to say, the poopfecta falls in because the Cardinals play the 49ers, so stay away from that one.
Yeah, I was looking at that one right now. I don't think I'm going to touch that one.
Well, let's get on to the MLB Playoffs. October is here. The Cubs and the Rockies, as we've alluded to earlier, are in the middle of their National League wildcard game. I do think that the Major League Baseball Commissioner, Rob Manfred, needs to talk about expanding the playoffs and getting a 6th team so that they don't have this stupid one-game playoff thing.
The only thing that's not a series in baseball.
Yeah.
like playing.
Yes.
And I mentioned this when we talked playoffs a couple weeks ago, is like it makes all the sense in the world to add another team to the playoffs, because that's the most excitement you get throughout the Major League season. Like when teams are ramping up for the playoffs, you get all the sellouts, you get all the TV viewers, you get all the viewership of that. Your advertisers are going to be throwing more money at you for it. Cable networks are going to be throwing more money at you. The way that Amazon and like Netflix and all these other streaming services are going, you're probably going to get money thrown in from them. So why not add another team and make it two more series? Like have, the top teams, the 2 top teams have their little bye the way that they do. even though it's 3 right now, but have the 2 top teams have their bye like in football, and have these other 4, the other 4 teams play a best of 3 series. So instead of it just being a 1 wild card game, you get a wild card series, and you get like the home team gets the first, or like gets games 1 and 3 at home, and then game 2 is the other team gets. And I think that's more than fair and more than just exciting. Like it's it would.
I definitely do think if the wild card, the playing game was like a mini series like that, I think it'd be more exciting too.
Yeah, it just makes,
even if they don't,
makes all the sense in the world. All the sense in the world. So it is 1-0 Colorado, top third. Tomorrow night we have Athletics at Yankees, which is a really intriguing matchup because people were talking about who should the Yankees start. Should they start Tanaka? Should they start Severino?
Well, they already announced it.
Severino is going to get the ball. But the A's, they actually are coming into this and they're going to make it a bullpen game because they had one of the best bullpens in the league, and so they don't want to waste one of their starters because they don't have these like lights out starting pitchers when you think of some of these other playoff teams. They don't have a guy that they can say, okay, well, this is our number 1 and our number 2 is more than capable of winning game 1 in a playoff series. Like if you look at a team like the Astros, it's like if they were in the wild card game, they could throw Justin Verlander and have Dallas Keuchel, Garrett Cole, even McCullers throw in game 1 of their playoff series. So that A's are trying to get a bullpen game victory, allowing their starters to pitch on full rest going into Boston.
But in playoffs, that's what they always say. You need to have a bullpen.
Yeah,
so
that's why
their
people are
step up.
People's smart money is on the Brewers right now because all their starter needs to do is go 5, get 5 good innings, and fucking Hader is gonna come throwing. He had the highest strikeout rate of any pitcher all time, for a pitcher who faced more than 300 batters.
So is Christian Yelich MVP?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Very decisive. I like that.
Yes.
Well, and so before the season started, I believe 2 of us here picked Bryce Harper.
Yes.
I picked Nolan Arenado.
Mm-hmm.
Nolan Arenado came like inches away, from being right there with Yelich. Like if you're gonna look, to me, the top 3 are Yelich, Baez, and Arenado. Arenado got the NL home run lead. He won that with 38. He was 3rd in RBIs behind Baez and Yelich, and like Yelich just ran away with the batting title, and that's one of the reasons.
He nearly got the Triple Crown.
Yeah. He was 2 behind Arenado in home runs, and he was like 4 behind Baez in RBIs. And like the defense that he played, the way he played down the stretch, getting them the number 1 seed in the playoffs, he just lights.
Just get on my back, I'll carry y'all there.
So yeah, just lights out down the stretch. The Brewers, they just Jeffress closing, Hader with I think it was like 46% of the batters he faced, he struck out, which is just nuts. Aroldis Chapman puts up those numbers, but he doesn't face that many batters, or else he would probably have that record.
Because he's just a closer.
Yeah.
Hader's a mid reliever.
I thought they were going to call that a ball. It was like that was right on the corner. I mean, yeah, he tried to frame it and came into the middle of the plate, but that ball was on the corner. So the winner of this game plays those Brewers. And it's like Yelich is on this tear that like Daniel Murphy was for the Mets when the Mets made it to the World Series. So it's like if you get beat by the Brewers, it better not be by him.
Good luck with that. Unless he just comes in with a major like slump.
do what the Cubs did to Bryce Harper and just I don't care. You're getting on base every single time because we're gonna walk you and we're gonna make the guy batting behind you beat us. And the Rockies and the Cubs, it's going to be tough because they'll at least get a day rest. They'll get... So the first game would be... Jesus, I don't even know. It's not popping up.
You're talking about for the next round?
Yeah.
The schedule?
Yeah, it's not. It wasn't showing up on the ESPN scores because they don't know who they're going to face. I think it's
date.
I mean, it's online. It's probably on the link that you sent earlier. But the Brewers get the rest, but at least these teams will be able to rest. So they'll maybe be able to sneak out of Milwaukee with the split. It'll be tough, though.
That's what you're hoping for.
Because the Brewers are finally, like, getting to rest. The Cubs stretch, like, the end-of-season stretch was absolutely nuts. They played 30 of the 31 days in August. And they played nothing but pressure baseball in September, and they finished against the Cardinals, who were trying to get into the playoffs themselves. Where Milwaukee ended playing Detroit, who hadn't had anything to play for since like 4 years ago.
Since 4 years ago.
So with tomorrow's AL wildcard game, do we all think the Yankees are going to win that game?
I just want the Yankees to win just so we have that Boston-Yankee rivalry.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't be mad if the A's won, but...
I mean, I always root against the Yankees.
I do too, but...
but it's for entertainment.
But yeah, for entertainment value, you want to see Judge and Stanton and Sanchez and Duhar and...
Just get swept by Boston.
Just get blown off the fucking map by Mookie Betts and JD.
It's like the blue collar versus white collar when they go up against each other.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like the racist versus not racist. Oh, wait. Does that mean? What? Are we saying Boston's racist?
They're definitely racist.
Cool.
They're definitely...
Boston.
Yeah, they're definitely racist. So I think that...
I'm actually pretty excited for that one.
Oh,
for
yeah, Halloween. Yeah.
How old is this guy, man?
Do you see Jamie Lee Curtis?
That's what I'm saying.
At the same time, Michael Myers has fresh legs, dog. He's been just sitting there.
He's standing there, actually.
Fresh legs.
In a maximum prison.
So, do y'all think the Rockies are going to hold on to their lead, or do y'all think the Cubs are going to come back?
I think the Cubs are done.
I do too.
I think they're just.
I mean,
I think
you know where my rooting interest is in this game, and it's like,
where?
I just like after watching them the last like couple weeks, I can just their offense is sputtering because I think all of their guys are just worn out. They just don't have
running on fumes.
They're not seeing the ball out of the hand. They're guessing a lot. The defense has still been good, but the only like John Lester and Kyle Hendricks have been pitching really well, but the other pitchers haven't been there. The bullpen fell apart down the stretch, so it's just. The Rockies have that 1-0 lead, and every inning so far they've been getting good contact on Lester, getting base runners on. So eventually you would expect them to push another run or two across. And right now they can't get anything going off of Freeland. So I see it Rockies going into Milwaukee, and that's going to be an interesting series because I think that the Rockies could steal games 2, 3, and 4 because the Brewers' strength is their bullpen and their defense, and Yelich.
Yeah.
So you can the offense of the Rockies is much more powerful than the offense of the Brewers. And if you get the lead on the Brewers, like, they don't come back as well as other teams do. The Cubs led the league in comeback wins this year. So getting the lead allows you to avoid the Brewers' bullpen and, like, must-score run situations. And the Rockies have the home field that they do and the offense that they do. So, like, I don't see the Brewers starting pitching, being able to hold the Rockies' bats down in Colorado. So I think that it's one of those series where if the Brewers lose one of the first 2 games, they're losing the series. And then I think Braves-Dodgers is going to be a really, really interesting series because you have, this young Braves team going up against the runner-up last year, the team that lost to the Astros in the World Series.
But also have great young talent.
Yeah, great offense. Manny Machado picking him up. Walker Buehler's been a star this year. Clayton Kershaw was hurt all, like, the first half of the year. If he can just stay together for the playoffs, like, they have, one of the top 2 closers in baseball in Kenley Jansen. I think that's going to be an intriguing series that I personally see the Dodgers coming out with the win there. Because they have the home field advantage over the Braves and the experience. And then the last series is going to be Indians-Astros. The last 2 AL champions. One of them actually pulled out a title.
That's a rematch from last year too, right? Because didn't they play the Indians to get to the World Series?
They played the Yankees to get to the Yankees beat the Indians. The Indians had gone up the first 2 games, and then the Yankees won the last 3 to win that series.
There you go. Yeah.
So, and like, that's it. Every series that we have going on, or potentially going on once these wild cards are done, like, it's just storyline after storyline and intriguing matchup against intriguing matchup. Because you have, like, the Astros have a complete team. And the Indians have, like, just as complete a team. They have the offense with Jose Ramirez and Lindor and Encarnacion and the rest of their lineup. And then they have, the aces of the staff and Kluber and Bauer and Carrasco. And then they have the bullpen and Andrew Miller. And I think Shaw is still their closer, or Cody Allen, one of those guys. So, like, if the Indians get into a lead, it's going to be really interesting to see how the Astros go about it. But the Astros have Verlander and Cole and Keuchel and McCullers and Morton and just an incredible staff that. And then they made the trade for Osuna to be able to shut down the 9th inning. So I think that's that series and the potential Yankees-Red Sox series are the most intriguing series going forward. Would y'all agree on that? Do y'all have another one that you're intrigued about?
No, I definitely
Because it definitely seems like the AL, with the teams that are in it, has the most like intriguing matchups.
Seems more fun.
Yeah,
I mean,
because the potential you have Red Sox, Yankees again going at it, and then Cleveland and Astros. Like
just those three teams alone. Yeah. Boston, the Yankees, and the Astros. Like,
it's
because like in the NL, it's like Dodgers.
Dodgers and Cubs are the two storylines there.
Yeah.
Like, other than that, it's that's a cute story. Like, it's a.
I mean, like, I like the Brewers, but it's like, do they have enough?
Well, and I was gonna.
It's like the same story we've had with Cleveland.
I meant to look it up. Do my research on our podcast when we did our MLB preview, but I'm pretty sure that other than the Nationals winning the East, I picked Brewers, Cubs, Dodgers, Rockies as the other four the four of the other five teams, and the Nationals just choked away this year. But I knew that the Brewers, with the moves that they made, they were going to be right there with the Cubs. And it took an extra game this season for them to overtake the Cubs in that division.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to watching the baseball playoffs this year, and I think I've said that for the last 6 years.
I think it's just a common thing.
Well, especially the last 3 years since the Cubs got good. I have a true rooting interest.
Yeah.
Before that, I was rooting against teams. I was rooting against the Cardinals and rooting against the Yankees. But now it's I'm rooting for these teams, and outside of the Yankees, there isn't a team in the playoffs that I'm if they win the World Series, I'm gonna hate my life.
I could think of one.
The Dodgers.
You're a Kershaw hater.
Not a Kershaw hater, just a realist.
His ERA is 4.5 in the playoffs.
No.
Exactly.
Yep. Thanks for making my point.
It's only because his ERA in the regular season over his career is a 2.27. So that's it's such a big disparity.
It's super huge.
You can go 16-10 with a 4.5 ERA. John Lester this year was the NL wins leader with a 3.5 ERA. So it's the ERA doesn't mean you're a bad pitcher.
Yeah, but when it came down to the playoffs, he was money.
Yeah,
and he has a ring for it.
He has a couple rings.
There you go.
So let's get onto our On Fire, In Dire, and Prophecy segment and wrap up the week. We'll go over some of the round one baseball that we see next week, and then some of the series might actually be wrapped up possibly by next Tuesday. We'll go on from there. So Andrew, you can lead off with the fire.
My fire is a future of quarterbacks. Looking real bright. Looking real nice.
That's something that I was going to get into at a later podcast when we start talking college football. And
they're all athletic too.
If you look at some of the true freshmen and true sophomores that you see in college football right now, when they're able to make it into the pros, these guys are going to be good.
They're going to be good fast.
Jake Fromm from Georgia, true sophomore. We all know Tua from Alabama, true sophomore. That dude Trevor Lawrence for Clemson, who overtook the senior Kelly Bryant. JT Daniels from USC. Who else do we have? There's a couple that I'm missing. Haskins from Ohio State. He looks like he's going to be able to be a star in the league. So you have 7 or 8.
Didn't this past week he came in like after just a couple of plays and just took over the game.
Haskin?
Yeah.
Well, he's their starter. For against Penn State. I think he had a rough beginning to the game. Kyler Murray was the one for OU that he had to sit, but he got drafted by the A's in the first round, and he was saying how he was going to play the 1 year of college football and then go pro baseball because he's a pitcher.
I didn't know about the A's.
Yeah, they drafted him 29th overall this year. But yeah, and I think he's a sophomore too, junior. He was backed up Baker Mayfield the last couple of years after transferring from A&M. But yeah, the future of and this is just the college guys that I brought up. The pro guys, you're looking at the Bakers, the Lamars, the Mahomes, the Goff, Wentz and Watson and Dak and
I don't know about throwing Dak in there.
Dak to me, and I've made the comparison before, and it's a rightful comparison. People might want to say that Deshaun is more this way, but I see a lot of similarities to Russell Wilson. I don't early in his career, I didn't think Russell Wilson was a great quarterback. He developed into a great quarterback, and he's just unfortunately behind that offensive line and has no running backs to hand the ball off to either, and they don't have a line to run behind. So he kind of is in this tough situation. But when he was a rookie, second year in the league, going to NFC championships, going to Super Bowls, winning Super Bowls, he wasn't a great quarterback then. He was serviceable. He was Blake Bortles. He was what Dak Prescott is. He was better than Blake Bortles, but
what?
he was a guy that you could win in spite of him. And when he was great, you were unbeatable. Jacksonville's unbeatable when Bortles is great. And Dak has a lot of the same build, same skill set. Similar position of team to roster, great running back, utilizes play action extremely well, and you can see, I could see Dak becoming a right around the top 10 quarterback. I could see him being in the 10 to 15 range where he could go out and win a Super Bowl as long as, the line is there, Zeke is there.
Well, if they open up the playbook like they did this past Sunday,
yeah,
he could make those throws. I don't know why they don't make him throw down the field more.
It goes to those numbers that you saw. I think Tony Romo had similar numbers like this, where when he threw the ball more than 30 times, the Cowboys are 6-16, and when he throws the ball 25 times or less, they're 14-2. Numbers, crazy numbers like that, where it's if you're not relying on him to win games, and eventually he'll learn how to win those games. Russell Wilson has always had the ability to just go out there and make plays to win games, and Dak Prescott hasn't gotten there quite yet.
Well, Dak his rookie year has made a couple going down the field, winning the games in crunch time, and that was his rookie year.
Yeah, I think everybody remembers that Green Bay game for Seattle where, Richard Rodgers shouldn't have tried to catch the onside kick. But then, Seattle got the onside kick, and Russell Wilson throws that bomb to Doug Baldwin. Maybe it was great curse, but one of those guys. But yeah. I'm right there with you. The future of quarterbacks is brighter than the sun. Alvin, who's on fire for you?
Big Zeke finally feeding the beast. 240 all-purpose yards against that Lioness defense of yours. Just torch y'all guys.
They're a work in progress. You see some plays and some moments where you're okay, that's where they need to get to, and then you watch the next 38 minutes, and you're like, that's awful.
And then you watch that over-the-shoulder basket catch.
Yeah, it's just
You can't have a linebacker lined up on them, man.
Well, you can. You just have to be aware that a linebacker is lined up on him and like play a cover 2 over top. Something you can't
have a single coverage like that.
Yeah. Know your personnel. And we talked about that game quite a bit. My fire is somebody we also talked about a little bit. Christian Yelich. He's on fire. That's all I need to say. Like, dude's on fire.
No.
He 2 weeks ago, he was like, well, yeah, he might win the MVP. Like, he could win the MVP. And then the next 2 weeks went by, and you're like, yeah, he's the MVP. Like, he put the Brewers on his back. Like, the way that Javi Baez needed to. And that the MVP race pretty much came down to that. Like, Javi Baez had a better year throughout the year. But Yelich had that, like, Heisman moment that we all, like, look for in player seasons. Like when
multiple cycles.
Yeah. Yeah. Within, like, a month span, the home runs to win games and going 3 for 3, or he went 3 for 4 yesterday with the go-ahead RBI, and he was just unstoppable down the stretch. I'm going to follow up with the in dire section. Mine is the Atlanta Falcons. You just can't catch a break. Your offense has been playing lights out. It looks like Sarkisian has finally figured out how to operate this offense. Matt Ryan is utilizing his weapons well. But your defense just keeps falling apart. Lots of injuries. So they're gonna need to figure out what to do defensively if they're going to turn the season around. And it's week 5 and they have a must-win game against Pittsburgh, because if they go 1-4, the Saints are playing at home against Washington. So
Carolina coming off the bye week.
The odds are that this New Orleans will be 4-1 after this week. Carolina can possibly be, I think they'd be 3-2 or 2-2. I have to look at their schedule. Carolina plays, they're at home against the Giants. They win, they're 3-1. So if the Falcons lose to Pittsburgh, in Pittsburgh, they're 1-4, and it's just, they're not making the playoffs. They're just not.
That's it.
They're not going to pull that out, because other teams in the NFC are going to be able to have a better record. So the Falcons are my dire. Alvin, back to you for your in dire.
Welcome, Fitz Tragic. Goodbye, Fitz Magic.
Now you don't need to say Fitz Tragic, because you could just say his name and everybody gets the gist there.
Yeah. Well,
you can say Fitz and
we all know what you mean.
And now you got Jameis Winston in the starting position. It looked like Bucks could have made some type of excitement happen. Now it's just going to go downhill from here.
Well, and that's I forgot who was saying it. It might have been, I listened to Bill Simmons way too much, probably. But he was like, he was going over some of the games, and like he's going over how Cleveland's probably a lot better than people might think they are because of their record. Because as I said earlier, they should be 4-0, whereas the Bucks, like, they came out swinging with a haymaker against New Orleans. New Orleans didn't know what to do in that first game. They played a perfect game. The next week they're playing the Eagles, who really just haven't looked right all year.
They haven't been flying.
And then other than like the last quarter and a half of that Pittsburgh game, that's when the wheels fell off last week against Pittsburgh for Fitzpatrick. So it's like, are we sure that it was him being special, or teams just not really knowing what to do, like just kind of being caught by surprise almost? They were caught with their pants down.
Well, I mean, he always has those like stellar weeks, and then
but it's good. Goodbye to the Magic, nonetheless.
Yes, indeed.
Andrew, on to you.
I had the same thing. The Magic is gone. Looks like Ryan has no more tricks up his sleeves.
I like the meme where he was in the Hogwarts school uniform with the broken
wand.
My St. Louis Cardinals family. My uncle, born and raised in Ferguson, suburb of St. Louis. They're sending me texts watching this game. The first one was a billy goat running. The second one was a person being chased by billy goats. And the last one is somebody wearing a shirt that says, "There's always last year." So that's about how that this game is looking like. So now we're on to our prophecy section, and Andrew, we'll just boomerang it right back. Lead off.
My prophecy is going along the UFC fight. We got a big Khabib versus Conor McGregor, UFC 229. I've got Khabib taking him in the 4th round just by submission.
What kind of submission?
Rear naked choke.
Got that on record.
Yeah.
Alvin? Well, I'm along the same lines, but I got it Khabib winning in 3 rounds.
Ooh.
Just because the history
I can name that tune in 2 notes.
It's just because McGregor, his stamina, he never had great stamina, so...
Stamina.
I mean, it depends on how the fight goes, really, because he can go 5 rounds if...
He went 30 minutes with Mayweather.
Yeah, but...
With noodle arms.
That's boxing.
Yeah, and that's not going to the ground.
I know, that's what I'm saying, is like... there's a reason why it's 5-minute rounds, because of like all the energy that's exerted with how the UFC fights can go. I mean, I'm in the McGregor camp. It might just be the Irishman in me.
Colonizers.
But he's also just... He's so damn good. And I haven't watched much Khabib to know really like how good he is.
I think he's pretty good.
So I mean, if he's in this position, he has to be good. It's not like they're throwing like
26-0, 10-0 in the UFC.
I just like it on the last fight that I saw Khabib, and he won. He was just drinking an energy drink. He was like, "I'm ready for another fight. Let's go."
Yeah, that's
yes.
Like that's kind of the thing about Khabib is he's kind of similar to McGregor about he's like
just dominant.
Yeah, just put me in the fucking cage and like I don't need all this press conference. I just want to go out there and fight and then he'll finish a fight and he's like, all right, well he just wants it to be like a fucking Tekken arcade match. Next fighter.
Next. Doing the tower on Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
Face your face.
Face
yourself.
I'm taking it off the map a little bit of what we've been talking about. My prophecy is that Jimmy Butler's going to be traded by week's end.
Has to be though.
It
has to.
I think right now the thing that they're looking at is
do you have a
offers.
Destination though?
I was trying to figure that out. I kind of
San Antonio.
A lot of teams are backing out though because they're saying the price is too high.
Right, and then Jimmy Butler's agent came out and was like, "Yeah, their asking price is way too high for Jimmy Butler. Like, what are they doing? Like, you're gonna end up with an unhappy star player, and we see how that works now.
You can't have that in the locker room.
Like you see how that works. I've said it that you don't win with an unhappy locker room. Like if Kobe and Shaq and that 04 team couldn't make it through that year in that locker room
with the Zen Master himself.
Yeah, like Jimmy Butler being unhappy.
I mean, you got to give some credit to Detroit.
Well, I mean, Detroit was the perfect team for that Lakers team.
Yeah.
But that just everything eroded. It's like Detroit was the perfect team for that Lakers team because they were so frustrating. Like, because they
just added to the frustration.
Yeah, you have this 6'9" center who's like made of stone, blocking Shaq. Like
he was bodying him.
Yeah, and then you have Rasheed Wallace doing Rasheed Wallace things. Like one of the true great underrated players of all time.
Oh, the Rip Hamilton screens.
Yeah, Tayshaun Prince, like Dr. Octopus over there playing defense, and then Chauncey Billups being the general of that whole thing, like that. And that's not even talking about. I think Antonio McDyess was their backup big.
Yep.
They had that team was so good, and I mean the next year they took the Spurs to 7, but. It's tough because it's like it goes to that I don't know who has the pieces to trade for Jimmy Butler, and I was big into the Clippers. They need to get somebody. They need to just push their chips in.
They're waiting for next year. They already clocked out of the next season.
Yeah. So, but what would they be? Because they're gonna put all their chips on being able to sign a free agent.
They're putting other chips in Kawhi.
So exactly.
Like they got rid of Bruce Bowen for him.
Yeah, I'm on record saying that if I'm the Clippers, I'm trading for him now. Like I'm getting this year from him and signing him to a deal and like just getting him in because I don't want to risk free agency. But if you're not going to do that and you are going to risk free agency, you're saying you're putting your chips in free agency. So why not use picks and players that you already have now that aren't going to affect free agency?
Tobias Harris and some picks, man.
Tobias and Boban, because they're a package deal. Mm-hmm. They can't be separated anymore. That's like separating Richard Jefferson and Channing Frye. Like you just can't have it. Like those guys are just so funny to be together. Like they're the odd couple.
Mike Miller and John Jones.
So that's the Clippers. I think would be destination 1. And it wouldn't surprise me to see like the Nets try to package something for them, and try to the like Nets or Knicks, because we know like there's been talks about Kyrie wanting to play with Jimmy Butler. So if the Nets or the Knicks can package something,
but then Kyrie just said he wants to see his jersey in the rafters in Boston.
He said a lot of stupid stuff.
He also apologized about the flat Earth thing. So I'm starting to believe what he said. Take that into consideration too.
But yeah, I think if you're Minnesota and preseason just started, you can. This is the time to trade him. Like, get him into another locker room. Let your team know that these are the guys you're going forward with. Like, and really just refresh everything. You don't want to go into the season with all this like baggage. So, Jimmy Butler traded. That's my pick. Going to the bottom of the 5th now. Cubs, Rockies. Cubs still down 1-0.
John Lester keeping them in the game.
Barely. He's been getting rocked.
Tagged.
Yeah, he's been getting rocked.
He has over 6 Ks already, or 6 Ks.
But that's the thing with Lester, though, is nothing phases him. Yep. He'll pitch 130 like pitches, give up 20 hits, but he'll find a way to get those 3 outs in an inning without giving up much more than a run. So that is this episode number 45 for us for the Benchwarmers podcast. I have been Casey Coggins with Alvin Hebert.
Be back at it again.
And Andrew Lara.
Aye, aye.
We'll see you next week.